Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the East West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Battelli. The men's suit represents class, tradition, culture, lifestyle, everything, and is the internationally renowned name Paul Battelli. Thank you, Paul, for sponsoring. Back to the show today. With me, a political commentator, Mr. Drexel Smith of Drexel Consulting Group. Oh, that's a wonderful group. Only your email is too long, though. Smith at Smith Consulting Group.com.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you may consider shorten it.
We just want you to practice your English writing.
I see. And the spelling too.
Yeah.
All right, good.
But what I've learned on the show today, Jack, I feel very inadequate because I do not have one of Paul's suits on. So maybe by the next show, I can get introduced to
what you can do, though, is that you,
to share the economic prosperity.
Yeah, of course. When talking the issues, about issues, you may say something just for the purpose to have the Paul Battelli people see. Say, I would have better opinion if I have a set of a Paul Battelli on.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
That, all right.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Back to the discussion. We see that not only China needs Southern American countries, but the United States need them too, because both of them need to find an extra market to lay down to dispatch their surplus products, right, for better revenue. Okay, now the rest of the world, other folks in other countries, how do they need the move like China and the United States, kind of like join hands in the collaboration? I mean, they kind of opening what they call a common market. Okay, how the rest of the folks would like that, please.
Well, I would like to think that in many respects, the United States and South America have enjoyed a good relationship. My travels to South America, again, as recent as this year.
Brazil, you went, right?
I was greeted warmly as an American. Again, I think that what South American countries need is economic prosperity where a larger number of their people can enjoy. And it's my view that the rising tide lifts all boats. So,
all right, yeah.
Okay? So as more countries enjoy economic prosperity, if a company begins to trade with China and the U.S., maybe they can afford to buy a Mercedes from Germany. So Germany now enjoys some prosperity.
All right, okay.
And as the country grows, a company grows, more of the employees can afford to buy higher quality goods and services.
And the Germans might need more rubber to make tires.
Exactly. So my view is that economic prosperity benefits everyone as the tide rises.
Rising tide.
And we
lifts
have
all
fewer
boats.
people. And we have fewer people that have to depend on illegal trade, such as the drug trade. And once we have more opportunities for trade, then I think people enjoy that and have less interest in the debate. I found it fascinating that Colombia very recently voted not to embrace the uniting of the rebel with the government cause, almost after decades of fighting, acknowledging that maybe they should continue to argue, which I found it very surprising. Colombia, again, is another beautiful country, tremendous natural resources, some of the best coffee in the world, and great things, but they also have an illegal drug trade, but they have an unstable government with the strength of the rebels, and they had a vote to ratify an agreement between the long-standing argument that the people didn't vote for. Very interesting to me why you would not vote for peace. I would certainly advocate peaceful prosperity is everyone's interest.
That automatically leads the discussion from economical point of view to political point of view, right?
Yes.
Politically speaking, if you have enough money, you must ask for something more. How about my right, right? How about my vote? Something like that. Do you think that was something, like you said, we leave it to the rising tide that will lift all boats, including the political boat?
Well, it's a very interesting and insightful question. The answer is I'm going to remain optimistically hopeful that the economic tide will take and help everyone.
Sure.
I think in our country, we're, regardless of your view of how good or not good President Obama has done, I think few would argue that he was a very politically oriented president.
Politically right.
Well, he was a politically oriented person. His background as an attorney and involvement with the projects in Chicago, he came from a political orientation. Now we have elected, good, bad to be seen, a businessman, not a politician,
Okay.
a business person.
Quite a change.
Business people tend to be much more pragmatic, much more focused on an end result
All right. Okay.
than worrying about the process. And I think that a lot of the political commentators around the world, a lot of the politicians in the US are sitting here frightened because it's not predictable how this non-politician handling things like a business is going to go forward.
Okay.
Again, my view is I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that having a pragmatist and a business-oriented approach will be the right move.
What you're saying now probably depicts exact conflicts, exact trepidation about us Americans now. On one hand, we are tired of the past 8 years of being politically right. And on the other hand, we're so worried about a man kind of like wet behind the ears in the political arena to exercise his right as the supreme commander of the United States, right? Okay. Yet, one thing for sure, I don't give too much to the fact that if the president himself knows too much, knows a lot, because given the condition, if you are a evil-minded person or not, if not, you have your consultant groups, if not army, if not troops, are surrounding you, right, to prevent you making mistakes, right? Other than if you are a Adolf Hitler kind of person, so we're okay, I would say, right? And the same thing happens with President Obama, that because he has lots of consulting group, so I am too, like you, optimistic to what we see now. But the thing that will make a change is that to Donald Trump, a dollar is a dollar. A dollar has 4 quarters. That's it. 4 quarters make a dollar. And to President Obama, it might not be that case. And there is always the third bathroom, something like that, right? So that is the part I could hardly agree with. So things might be different, right?
Oh, I think without any question, it'll be different. I think it'll take considerable time
Okay.
before we can assess whether that's good or not. I think time will tell. But if you look at the first week, the first piece of really wonderful news that I heard was that the president-elect has said to all the lobbyists, you can't serve.
Yeah. You're right.
No lobbyists, go away. And for those that do serve, you have 5 years that you
Yeah.
cannot be a lobbyist.
5-year ban.
Okay?
Yeah.
I like that attitude going in. I like that attitude.
And also, I want to point out that he has some kind of deeply rooted measure to prevent corruption from happening, is because that he did not use anybody's money, so no reciprocation we're talking about. So that's why he is hiring 4,000 employees to the public, from the public.
Yeah.
If you feel you qualify, you can apply. I too. Everybody can. Something like that. So,
Well, look what he's done, Jack. People that were very vocal against him over the past year, he is now bringing in to have discussions with.
you are right. You're right.
A famous quote,
Romney.
for example.
Yeah, for example. Yeah.
What's the old famous quote about you keep your friends close and you keep your enemies closer?
Okay.
Okay? He's bringing in and looking and communicating with a broad group of people. And business people know that they cannot do everything. They must have a team, and they must bring in a team of very qualified people for each of these positions. And I'm hopeful that through this vetting process, that he will choose people, the right people for the right job, as opposed to just being my friend. And the fact that he's
yeah.
bringing in adversaries
Sure.
or people that spoke against him speaks highly of things to me.
Honestly,
so I'm very
in the
pleased.
very beginning, I was not in a position of liking him a lot. Later, well, I kind of like said goodbye to the extreme left and stayed in the middle of the road. And now when I started watching him with a 100-day plan, I kind of telling myself, probably this guy will do something. Or let's hope so, right? Okay, my dear audience, today with my good friend, Drexel Smith, well, even though I lost my voice due to fever, bad cold, I still enjoy very much talking about the politics of American North and South America politics. Right? So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear audiences. Welcome back to the East West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Battelli, an Italian man suit and with tradition, lots of years of tradition, and of course, with nowadays nanotech technology, and of course, design, workmanship, everything number one. So, Paul, thank you for sponsoring. Back to the show with my friend Drexel Smith, political commentator, and we're sharing his takes about the present visit by Xi Jinping to Latin American countries, and by the fact that Donald Trump has made Southern American countries the target for future market, and that by coincidence might call for a collaboration. And I believe next move when Donald Trump gets to office and President Xi Jinping could make his first official visit, right, to shake hands with a brand new guy. How do you hope that to happen?
Jack, I repeat what I've said many times. I remain hopeful, very hopeful, that the United States and China can enjoy a good, respectful relationship. And I'm hopeful that that will continue.
There's one thing I would like to check with you. Remember last year, the normalization of relationship between the United States and Cuba caused lots of controversy. And at that very time, where did Donald Trump stand?
Well,
do you recall?
I can't speak for him, but I have heard that he and some of his advisors were not pleased with that move. That may be revisited.
I see.
I hope not. I think going for 50 years without communicating with somebody you can get to in a rowboat it's never made
probably a canoe.
Well, yeah.
You can do that. Yeah.
You don't solve problems by simply not communicating and treating it like it doesn't exist.
Shut yourself up. Yeah.
The people in Cuba have not prospered in the past 50 years. I am hopeful that as the Castros continue to age and move on, that there will be a continuing change in attitude. And again, I trust that President Trump will recognize that in the past year, many U.S. companies are beginning to make investments in Cuba that he doesn't want to put at risk. So I'm hopeful that we'll stay on a track of continuing to build a better relationship. Now, let me finish. Do I understand that during the 1950s and early 60s, that when Castro took over Cuba, it was ugly. And many, many people suffered. Many families suffered. And there is continued hate, distrust, unhappiness. I respect their point of view. I respect it's hard for them for all of a sudden our government to shift gears and say, we're going to be friendly. At some point, you just can't go through life continuing to hate people.
Of course, yeah. And there is nothing that can go forever. Berlin Walls, how strong that wall is, right?
Yeah.
And you get climbed, you get shot.
Well,
and
Jack,
legally.
I make the same comment. you know, my father fought in World War II in Europe and was very involved. And we were friends with the Russians. You know, I don't have any problems with the Russians.
Yeah.
I have a problem with any ideology that thinks that they should just take over and incarcerate other people to their way of thinking. That's a problem. But for President Trump to make comments of a willingness to have a communication with the Russian leadership, I think is a positive thing.
All right.
I think it's positive to communicate. Let somebody prove that they're not worthy to be my
There's
friend.
nothing that go forever. There's nothing absolutely right or absolutely wrong.
Yeah. Now there
There's
could
only
be a
relativities
situation.
you're talking about.
Could be a situation where people's behavior prove that
Good.
that I can't get along with
That's
them.
very
But-
good.
But let that play out. Let that play out.
Yeah, given the fact if you follow Donald Trump's footsteps for the year and a half, right? You see himself kind of a fine-tuning himself bit by bit, right? Bit by bit. What he said no by them, now probably yes. Who knows?
Well,
He never said he would create a dialogue with Russia a year ago. Now he does, right? So could be. I
Well-
would say, if he is smart enough, he would follow the trend, rather than create another battlefield for himself.
Yeah.
He's got a handful already.
yeah, we don't need another.
We don't need another one, right?
No.
Very good. Okay. How about the other, area of the world? For example, Iran, right? Take the Middle East, the whole pot, right? So how do you see the problem be alleviated in that part, or understandings could be made, or attentions could be stretched by that move? Latin America move.
Well,
Given the oil.
yeah. I guess I think the issues with Latin America are economic trade oriented and natural resources oriented. The protection of the tremendous natural resources along the Amazon. Those issues, I think, are very, very different than the Middle East issues. The past 8 years under President Obama, we have had a president, and during Secretary Clinton's time, certainly a Secretary of State, that embraced this notion that we are not against any Muslim, Middle Eastern, we want to be friendly with everybody. There's this battle cry that President Obama never referred to them as radical.
Islamic. Whatever
Okay.
they call it, huh?
And after 8 years of that attitude of can't we all get along, we now have someone that's been very vocal that says, no, we have a problem. The world has a problem. The world has a problem with terrorist activity. We have witnessed terrorist acts for 25, 30 years that have all been perpetrated by a particular group. Every one, from the Pan Am airline that went down 30 years ago, to the bombings in Europe, to the World Trade Center issue in this country. All of these radical activities, terrorist activities, and terrorist is a horrible thing because it just frightens people, have all been committed by a particular group. And I think what the incoming president is saying, let's begin to recognize that it's a problem. Let's begin to call it what it is. And now we need to get a plan to deal with it.
Of course.
It's a very different approach.
Sure, of course. Of course, it's a high time that we did something in that whole concept, right? Well, probably that calls for another segment. We want to take a short break, and we'll be right back on this, please. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. I'm sorry I lost my voice. Do I sound a little better than I started? Well, anyway, I get better. I feel better because when I go into depth with my friend, Drexel Smith, on this many issues, I feel more confident, and I started feeling physically better. All right, now, thank you, doctor. All right. My dear audience,
would you like some medicine?
Sure, sure. My dear audience, welcome back to the exclusively sponsored by Paul Batanley show, the East-West show. Paul Batanley is by the way, this here today, a sample, right, I'm wearing, and he says that he needs one. Well, I said, well, you probably want to let the Paul Batanley people know that you need one, right? Okay, now.
Very true. I'm only hopeful.
You're only hopeful.
They'll have a suit.
Optimistic.
They'll have a suit in my size.
Okay, very good. Yeah, you are not oversized, right? You're okay. Now, we at the last segment towards the end just made a very serious point. The point is that the indefinition of the world problems, to be more precisely, the problem we're having, there are two different ways to take: the Obama way or the Donald Trump way, right? Which, to your taste, that might work, or they both are wrong, or they both are right.
Well,
remember, I'm asking for definition.
I understand. I think I do.
Okay.
Let me begin with one of the single most important freedoms in our country is the freedom of people to choose a religion or choose to not have a religion.
Believe, not to believe.
It is absolutely fundamental. And I cringe with the idea of people living in a country where they're forced into a religion that they may not choose, or they're not given a choice. I just think it is so fundamental to people's being and what they want to believe in the hereafter, or whatever pieces of the religion make sense. So from that point, I want to be brutally clear. I have many, many friends in this country that are of the Muslim faith.
Me too.
I have no issue
Yeah,
with people of any faith.
of course.
What I have an issue with is any faith, and by the way, any political persuasion, that thinks that they want to take over by force. I don't support that. I don't support the radical element.
Have we been doing that?
Well, I'm of the opinion, now this is a Drexel Smith opinion,
Okay.
that President Obama trying to reach out and embrace the Muslim world so strong and an absolute refusal to make reference to the radical Muslim element as being a true enemy of our country. He has demonstrated, in their view, a sign of weakness. And I think it's important that many people see strength and weakness as much more important than maybe I do. I look at a person as they stand, but I think not to appear strong
Excuse me for
is a
interruption.
weakness.
Excuse me for interruption. If we stretch a little bit to go beyond Obama time
Yeah.
to George Bush,
Yes.
all right? So how did we do back then?
Well, I think the jury is still out. History is still being written as to President Bush's initiatives in Iraq made any sense. Here we had a dictator that was a bad guy, but he was a dictator and he held the country together.
No. First, he had lots of massive destruction weapons. That was the first excuse.
Well, and the world thought that they did. It wasn't just the United States. Okay, the world intelligence agencies thought so. I still suspect those weapons just made their way to another country.
I don't know. Never existed.
I don't think that's true. I think that Saddam Hussein had no trouble using gas in his fights with Iran. But I think the point is, I put myself in the category of having very limited understanding of the Middle East and all of the different factions. And it's in some respects almost a mystery that Muhammad created a religion and then all of a sudden it became fractionated, and now we have the Shiite group and we have the Kurd group and we have all of these different groups that after centuries
Do you think
can't
or do
get
you
along.
not think some of the groups are man-made?
Well,
Okay,
they're,
now
they're all man-made.
Probably I have to plead fifth.
My friend, they're all
on the following
all
statement.
religions are man-made.
No. I mean, probably on this point, I have to plead my fifth for the next statement I'm going to make. Right? It is totally my personal opinion from Jack Chow. Nothing represents the organization, nor does it do to the show itself. Okay, now we have all kinds of religions. Each religion. Okay, you can't give me even one example.
Are you talking about within Islam?
Of course, I know. I'm talking about on the global earth.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
There had been all kinds of religions.
Yes.
And you can't give me even one single example that certain religion had no wars, had no troubles of their own conflicts, right? Of no radicalizations of themselves, right? Now, it is only your take to make enemies with them or not make enemies with them.
Well,
Am I right? If you make your first move in the first place, you made yourself enemy to a certain group. You got to bear the consequences.
Okay, but Jack, you need to roll the clock back a little bit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You need to roll the clock back to when Pope Urban, almost 800 years ago, went to Paris and London and said, Islam is moving north. They're going to take over Europe. We need to stop them. And pleaded with them with a famous letter and famous speeches that started the Crusades.
Yeah,
Okay?
of course.
So now you roll the clock forward and you have one of the world's most prosperous empires called the Ottoman Empire. Okay? And Islam prospered, but they prospered within an environment where they had very defined
You're right.
rules of behavior where they could coexist. But even then they had conflicts. So at the end of War One, okay, 100 years ago, some very smart people, one of which was Sir Winston Churchill, was part of breaking up the Ottoman Empire, and they began to draw maps.
Yeah, make
And
new
say-
world orders.
And they say, okay, this will become Saudi Arabia. Okay, this will become not Persia.
Which never worked. Only end up making more trouble.
Exactly, because Jack, we didn't take the time.
All right, thank you. You're
We
hitting
didn't
the
take the
nail on
time
the head. That's exactly why I asked.
To understand the differences of the tribes, the political,
Yes.
and the religious structures that set the stage for the continuous conflict.
Let me ask you one question. Early 70s of the last century to the late 70s or something near about there in that area, the Bin Laden family and the Bush family were friends. Do you know that?
Yes,
You know that, right?
yes,
Very close friends.
yes.
Okay. I have no problem to be friend with anybody, provided you do not kill me, you do not invade me, right? And from that point on, why all of a sudden something pops up, right? So, do you think we Americans have some homework to do, have some serious consideration to do?
Absolutely, Jack.
Absolutely, right?
I
Okay,
think the
now-
entire world.
Now we want to give the job to Donald Trump. Do you think he himself or his advisory group would be smart enough to calm him down, say, hey, calm down, Mr. President. We got some homework that we ignored for so long.
Well, at least a century.
Since Bush 41,
Well, my answer to you is,
at least.
my answer to you, I don't know, but I'm going to remain hopeful.
Oh yeah, I know you're a hopeful person, Mr.
Because-
Hopeful.
Yep, Mr. Hopeful. Because I see, disregarding all the other stuff, all the other talk, Bush, our incoming President Trump, is a businessman and a very pragmatic one.
All right.
And I'm hopeful that he's going to take a business-like approach. And as we used to say, we peel the onion
Layer by layer.
layer by layer. Let's get down to the fundamentals. If we're going to be fundamental in this issue that has over 100 years created a very radical element that would find it more important to die for their cause.
If you want to say one
if you
religion,
want to get down to the fundamentals,
yeah,
we need to.
if you want to say one religion more outrights the other, you better restudy the history of crusade. Right? What is the result of what? Something like that. Okay, now we can say what we can say now is that if you look at the moment, probably this just a moment, changing hands, such a big nation changing hands,
Yeah.
and the second big nation comes approach to your neighbor, which is in the south, that might be your interest too, and you may get a chance together, work like a businessman, do business like a businessman do, something like that. That's why and where you and I both feel optimistic about.
But the challenges in the Middle East go deep. They go for centuries.
And we
They
may
go for
set them
people-
examples, right? By following the trend, we get better. And why do you not follow? Something like that.
And remember, my friend, that Iran and their leadership have declared that miles away over here in Israel, there's a whole country that shouldn't exist. And
do
it
you
just
think,
adds to the fire of all of this.
yeah, you are
upset.
right. Do you think, sir, the independence, I mean the dependence of oils just get that area spoiled?
Well, you're coming back to
Even
my favorite
more.
topic.
Right.
Of energy independence.
Energy, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
people, the world's dependence on the oil
Yeah.
from that area we call the trouble pot
Yep.
has aggravated the problem, made it even worse and worse day by the day.
Yeah, because they have too
Now
much
that
money.
they shift focus to Latin America, they have lots of oil, lots of crude, right? So that somehow will reduce a spoilship. So
Well,
we
I'm-
do not would have to spoil them to that point.
I am hopeful, Jack, that we're going to become an energy independent country because we've evolved other technologies and
All right.
just simply
Yeah,
lessened
you
our
are right.
dependence.
Your expertise, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
but again, I'm gonna end with I'm hopeful.
Okay, very good. Now you're hopeful, I'm hopeful. Like say the old film, what it called? You're okay, I'm okay, right? Like that kind. Well, let me make a recommendation or suggest that China buys the Southern American oil, however refined. Who does refinery? United States. Let's go build up some refineries in Latin American countries that refines the oil that China needs, United States needs, all right? So that benefits everybody, all right? You're hopeful, I'm hopeful. With my good friend, Drexel Smith, we went way, way, way over time. I believe my editor might have a hard time cutting off because everything is important. I don't care, let him do the job. That's his cup of tea, all right? My dear audience, thank you for watching. Hello, my dear audiences. Welcome to the East-West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Battelli, an Italian men's suit that represents class, tradition, workmanship, material, everything, lifestyle altogether. So, Paul, thank you for sponsoring. Back to the show. Today we are talking about, the whole world is talking about, last night is full of the scream of our TV system that President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, visits Latin American countries. And in the meantime, we here in the United States are anticipating the 100-day plan made by President-elect Donald Trump to see how can that be implemented. To echo with the move that President Xi Jinping of China is making, to echo with the need of the world. So that's why we want to name the show today, What Does Our World Need? Joining me, my good friend, Drexel Smith. He is not only a friend, he is a backbone of the community, my reliable source of information, and my consultant. So, Smith, welcome to the show.
Jack, thank you for having me.
And obviously, I lost my voice because I was running a little too high, right? And a fever and bad cold, I know that I'm unfortunately caught. But I'm so happy to have Drexel here. At least if you're talking about the transmit, I can do that right now.
Well, we were only a day away from a major celebration in our country, uniquely American,
Yeah.
the day of Thanksgiving,
Yes, you are right.
where we take a break, we pause with family and friends as a nation to give thanks for the world of plenty that we have. And most of us in this country have plenty. And many of us with a gathering
you're right.
waistline
You're
have
right.
more than plenty.
That's a way to put it. I really adore that. I'm so proud of being an American who is so, serious on being thankful rather than complaining. I would say, regardless of your religion or whatsoever, if you have a mind full of thankfulness, you are a better man, you're a better woman, I can guarantee. If you start a day complaining, and you will end up with more trouble. If you start a day with appreciation, at the end of the day, that very day, you end up a happy man or happy woman. So let's do.
But I
let's do
think
the latter.
more than that, it's important we have a day that we simply celebrate eating too much.
And also, the only thing that I'm not very happy is that we have to celebrate it by killing lots of birds.
Well,
Yes.
I'm sorry for the birds.
Yeah, someday, somehow, I wish that birds can be replaced by something else.
You
Right.
prefer fish? Or,
Oh, no. Something, well, rather than live animals.
ah,
All right. Okay. Now, back to the issue. We now hear that Trump is ready to go. We now hear that China is ready to go. So how do you see these occurrences at this particular interesting point of time?
I find it interesting to the point of fascinating that China at the top leadership is taking such a great interest in what we call South America.
Okay.
My personal point of view is that the southern part of the Americas, from what we call Central America, or below Mexico down, is many wonderful countries, but somehow in the past 150 years has not enjoyed economic prosperity that affects everyone to a large extent.
Okay.
There's still too many classes of people that have or have not. Earlier in the year, I was in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And Brazil is a wonderful and beautiful country with some of the world's greatest resources.
Mm-hmm.
But the poverty in Brazil takes your breath away. At the same time, the richness. Now, you go back in the 1800s when rubber was being mined from the Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
there was so much money and the ships were so frequent that the people in Manaus on the Amazon sent their laundry to Paris.
Ah. All right. That's a like zero style.
But today, they do not have a robust economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for China to reach out to Peru and Chile and other South American countries,
Mm-hmm.
I hope can only mean eventual prosperity to live the economic ability for everyone higher.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of the problem that we have in this country with so many undocumented immigrants coming from the South,
Mm-hmm.
we blame Mexico, but they're really not coming from Mexico. They're coming from impoverished countries much
Yes,
further
yes, yes.
south.
Mm-hmm.
And they want a better life. And I'm hopeful that if they can have a better life in their own country, that we will all enjoy more prosperity.
Good point. Very good point. Very good point. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. To me, I would say that if things are happening in Africa, for example, or South Africa, well, we might have an excuse because they are too far away. Things are happening South America, they are too close to us to not give us an excuse of not doing anything, right? Now that China makes a move trying to improve that area, I would say I would bet Donald Trump would not just take it easy, and he will say, hey, I can do something too. The United States do something. Do you think there will be a positive competition rather than negative competition?
Well, Jack, you've heard me repeatedly say on your show, I am optimistic
You are.
for an ongoing positive relationship between China and the U.S. I believe that. I believe we should be together. I believe that we should do things for the common good. I think that in many ways we're more together than apart, and that should continue.
Okay.
That's my hope, that's my pray, and that's what I believe. With reference to China's involvement in Africa, China's made a tremendous investment in Africa. And I think that in many places where China has made a major influence, I think it's been a very positive influence.
Yeah,
I am hopeful that establishing a trade relationship with the Southern Americas will be equally beneficial and productive.
Oh, yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right.
But I think Donald Trump, President-elect Trump and I are not communicating. He hasn't called me,
No, yeah, he will.
and we haven't had a conversation. But I'm of the opinion that his plate is very full with how he wants to plan the transition, because I think that there will be some very fundamental structural differences in the new president's administration interest and focused and pursuits as opposed to what we've seen from President Obama in the past 8 years.
Okay. On one hand, we see that it is the countries that in South America, called Latin America, using the Chinese term, that what they call, need China, need the United States to help them boost up the economy. On the other hand, if you look at China and the United States, they need that area, those countries too, right? How do you take about that?
Well, I think that too much of China's production of goods has been focused back to the U.S. And I think for China to continue an economic growth curve, they need to look at other countries
All right, okay.
as a source for the purchasing of their goods and services. You know, back in the formation of the Republican Party and the formation of the idea that our country needed to change goes back to the 1850s. We're talking 160 years ago, Jack, that a book about free man, free property was in part not a political statement, it was an economic statement.
Yeah.
Okay? That to free man, because that time we still had slavery, to allow people to be free and have prosperity to work, allowed them to buy goods, have services, and enjoy things, would increase economic prosperity. So take that to some of the countries that are right on the edge, okay? Chile, Peru, Brazil, and the other major countries that we call Latin America, they have tremendous economic or natural resources.
Potentials are huge.
And if we can see a little bit of economic prosperity, they become an enormous market for goods and services from China.
Very good.
So that would be the connection that I would
Thank you
see.
for the analysis, sir. And today, my dear audience, with my good friend Drexel Smith, we're trying to see the significance of the present visit by China side, and also Trump, a 100-day plan. In his plan, there is also an approach to other countries, to Latin American countries, see if we find ourselves another market, right? So if both kind of by coincidence come together, could it be a calibration? I don't know. So that's why we're discussing about it. So my dear audience, let's take a very short moment out. We will be right back, please.